So we're going to try something a bit different today. I'm going to do a movie review. And the movie I'm looking at today is Human Lanterns, a Chinese movie from 1982, directed by Chung Sung, with some really big name actors: Tony Liu, Quan Tai Chen, Li Lo, Ni Tian, some very well known actors, from the Shaw movies of the 70s, 80s. And this is a weird movie, but also very enjoyable movie. It's one of those war kung fu movies, as they call them. Wuxia, I think I'm pronouncing that wrong. Supposedly a retelling of Yojimbo, but I can't really see. There's superficial similarities, but it's a very unique movie. But at the same time, it's like a weird cross between a war kung fu movie, a giallo slasher movie from Italian cinema, and a mix of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and definitely would have been a video nasty of the 1980s. This would have been something that got the censors up in arms back then. But it's a really great movie, and I was instantly addicted to this, and it reminded me and rekindled my love of this type of movie that I grew up watching as a kid in the early 80s. Off the old VHS tapes. We had a guy that used to come around in a minivan, and he had like this whole library of VHS movies, and my dad would just pick them up and we'd watch. Jackie Chan, Drunken Master, Snake and the Eagle Shadow, the Bruce Lee movies, and other movies from Jackie Chan like Police Story, and some of these type of Shaw Brother movies, which were really fantastic. And I've always liked these movies, but I had grown sick of Chinese cinema, especially in the early 2000s. It seemed to lose its character, lose its way a bit, and they started making movies that were more suited to the younger audiences who were more interested in what was coming out of Hollywood. They were trying to do big blockbuster movies, a lot of explosions, action, Michael Bay type stuff. And it's unfortunate because they've pushed out this type of operatic and classic Chinese movies, which were popular going up until the 90s. Another classic, Iron Monkey, is another fine example. But maybe it just had run its course, like the spaghetti westerns had run their course, and how the superhero movies will eventually, the Marvel movies, they'll run their course as well. So it's a shame, and this movie really rekindled my love of those type of movies. This movie was really left field, but very enjoyable, and just the sets were fantastic, really fantastic sets, really great acting from both main characters. The use of color in the movie was really fantastic. You had different color for each kind of setting to show the mood and the type of characters that were living in that area, and also set the emotion and the tone of the scenes. Really well used, and I think something that harks back to the operatic days. Lovely use of color, and the story is really good as well. yeah, very enjoyable movie, and definitely worth picking up. Beautiful, movement in the fight scenes, well choreographed, really interesting, and really good tempo. And each character has their own fighting style, and especially the main villain. His style is very interesting. He's kind of like a weird skeleton bear man, and he kind of floats a lot through the air. They're trying to show that he's kind of supernatural in some way, and it works. It's very interesting. Everything gels well together. The two main kung fu masters aren't very likable. They're very arrogant, and both of them are trying to really one up each other all the time. And the story, I guess, is trying to display a message of don't be too proud and arrogant, and you should work together to fight the bigger bad. And that sometimes the pride can cloud your judgment and make you weak. So it's very interesting, very different type of characters that are on display than the type of characteristics that would be pushed in more modern Chinese movies. This kind of movie is telling people to be more humble and to work together and to not lose sight of what is important in life. That's what I really like about this message. This movie, the message is really good, and it's not trying to, shove it down your throat. Um, and it's good. It works well, and it's got a charm. This movie's got a charm. Some of the scenes are quite graphic for a Chinese movie of the 80s. I was really surprised. There's some particularly nasty scenes for a Chinese movie of the 80s. I'm surprised they got in there, and not something that you would see in a lot of movies coming out of China in the 1980s. But despite that, it's still very enjoyable, and all the different elements, they work well together and creates a very unique movie that really stood out and made me want to go and track down some more movies that would be similar to this. And I hope that I can find some more. There's still a lot of movies that I haven't seen from Chinese cinema back in the 80s. Definitely the ghost story movies I want to see again. Encounters of the Spooky Kind. But yeah, this is a fun movie. Definitely one worth picking up on Blu-ray. As just the colors are great, the sets, the lighting, everything is done very well, very operatic, and it's done on a low budget, but is worth its weight in gold compared to the modern movies, which have just lost their soul. I wouldn't go and seek out a modern Chinese movie. I much prefer to go and sift through the back catalogue of Shaw movies, of Golden Harvest movies, movies from the 70s and the 80s. This still proves that there's a lot of classics still there. Unless you know of some really, really good movies from more recent times, you can leave your message in the comment. But I wasn't too impressed. Ang Lee did the fantastic Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. That is just an amazing movie. Curse of the Golden Flower was good. He had some big hitters in that movie. Hero is a solid movie as well. But after that, I haven't really seen a really good Chinese movie in a long while. And even the more recent Police Story movie wasn't great. They're really trying to market everything towards a younger audience, and they're missing a trick, and they're losing they're losing sight of what really worked before. But I guess it's just the way it is of cinema, that you'll have certain types of movies that run their course. The same way that the spaghetti westerns run their course, that, thrillers kind of run their course, apocalypse movies, you'll have these trends throughout the decades that all run their course eventually. But this movie, definitely I recommend. Go check it out.